Your subconscious perceives things your conscious does not. Every one of us has had that funky feeling, like something doesn't feel right, and then something happens. Well, that book and I encourage you to tune into that, right? It is an unnatural thing. Who here is married? There you go. So, does this conversation sound familiar? Where would you like to go for dinner? I don't care where you want to go. Well, I want to go where you want to go. Okay, let's go here. Well, I don't want to go there. So this is familiar to everybody, right? When I was in law enforcement, my wife and I would have that conversation fairly regularly. I lived in the city that I worked, and it was not uncommon, after having that conversation, which went much longer than that demonstration, to walk into a place and it just didn't feel right. I don't have to understand it. I don't have to explain it. And it took a little bit for her to pick up on that, but it's like, I'm not comfortable here. Something doesn't feel right. It's time to leave. That's an important thing to embrace. Our survival instinct matters, and being tuned into that goes along. Lastly, and where we're really fighting the fire drill mentality is, if the building's on fire, how many people have to call 911? Have to. Maybe one. Your alarm system will probably bring them coming. If nobody calls and waves them off, they're going to drop the sky on you. In this kind of event, how many people have to call? Everybody. Absolutely everybody should be calling 911. Because you saw or did not see something. And from a tactical commander's point of view, I have no idea what's going on. I'm coming into this building, it is pandemonium. The purest form of chaos you've ever seen. And I'm trying to figure that out. Now, they talk about, like, call 911, tell them how many shooters there are, what kind of weapons they have, you know, what do they look like, and that's great. Like, if you got to look at the shooter and didn't get shot and got out and can make that phone call, awesome. What's more important than anything relating to the shooters?
Address.
No, but close. The wounded. You very well may have to step over around someone who's injured so that you can live. When you call 911, please pass along that information. How many people, where, what kind of injuries. That's the stuff that matters from a tactical commander's point of view. Because in the end, I don't care how many shooters there are, or what kind of weapons they have, or what they look like. I have to take the building. That's the job. And so, if it's Martians with ray guns, we're taking the building, right? And so, what I don't know, and what is not part of the plan going in, is where are the wounded? And so, armed with that information, I'll adjust my tactics. And here's how important it is. It's so rudimentary, because I'm right-handed, by and large, when I enter a building, I'm turning to the left. It's just the way that I hold the pistol on it. I'm comfortable turning the corner this way, and it's just how it goes. As arbitrary as that is, if the wounded are to the right, I'm going to miss them. I'm going to have to clear the whole building before I come back to them. Whereas if I know they're to the right, I can alter what I'm doing and have a better chance of saving their life. And so that's the big piece to that. So calling 911 is huge. Yes, sir.
Yeah, when you think about this structure, I know you're new here, but what in your opinion is the most vulnerable point of this structure?
In any structure, again, kind of going back to the tactical planner perspective, is anywhere there's a concentration of people is the most vulnerable part. Because those are my targets. If I'm a bad guy, and where I want to get to. And usually, the more people there are, the less security there is. Doors are being propped open, you know, those kind of things are going on. People are coming and going, if it's maybe not for this facility specifically, but any kind of mass gathering area, if there's a large influx of people coming in, it's easy for me to blend into the crowd and wander in. Now here it'd be a little different, because I'm presuming that most everybody knows everybody else, or at least recognized them at some point or another. And so that's some of that. But the answer to your question of what's the most vulnerable place in the building is wherever there's a group of people. You know, a large group of people is more likely to be attacked than not. And so it's not necessarily an area per se, but it's where the most targets are. And that sounds really terrible, but if I'm a bad guy, that's what I'm looking for. Any other questions on this? Let me know, this is kind of the meat of the thing. Yes, ma'am?
It's specific to this building. So in our synagogue, in the, where we actually pray, there's one exit to the outside. It's on the men's side. On the women's side, there's no exit to the outside of the building, and we have a divider down the center, you know, with a small space in the front where the women can go and get around if there's someone at the back of the room.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would the women do in terms of running that would be effective and not clog up that tiny little space to get through? I mean, what do you see as being feasible?
So I know I was told to repeat the question. The question is, how impossible is it to solve a problem when you don't know what the attacker is? And that's really the case. Because, well, it's a matter of what should any group do when their exits are limited, right? And as it applies to this facility, in the women's section of the sanctuary, right? Then, well, the number of exits are important, and if you have multiple exits, that's better. Locking the door during those times where you're having massive people makes that a much harder target to get to. Because that's really what we're trying to do, right? If I'm a bad guy, the harder I have to work at being successful in my attack, the less likely I am to do it.
Do you mean locking from the outside or locking
From the inside, so
From-
nobody
Yeah,
can
but-
get in.
So you're locked in.
And then we can get out in a cool, calm, orderly fashion.
But people, in practicality of it, the people going in and out of the service all the time, so it's not, you can't do that.
And then you're just in that circumstance. It's a poor design in the organization. I am certainly not going to recommend reconfiguring how you worship, right? And so there is a time where you come together as a group and brainstorm and see what you're comfortable with, right? Because we're always going against that convenience piece. You are never going to be in the best possible location when something terrible happens. It has never been my experience, and I've been through all kinds of terrible stuff. And not one time was I like, oh, that was perfect. That is exactly how I planned it. So there's a matter of, I'm really not dismissing that. It's just a very challenging problem. And the fact of the matter is, wherever you're at, you should be looking for, what am I going to do? How does this work? How can we work this out, right? Especially if you're part of an organization, right? Again, I do not have all the answers. I don't even have some of the answers. I may have an answer or two. So, as it applies to that, it's a matter of what are you willing to endure from an inconvenience point of view, right? Because currently, like you said, people are coming and going. Really, is that necessary, right? Is there a time where it's like, during this time, we're going to be locked in? And to use a similar, right? I have this conversation with healthcare organizations. When a person is in surgery, there is a time during that surgery, in some of those surgeries, where if the doctor steps away from the table and stops doing something, or the staff they have to evacuate, that person's going to die. It is high risk, they can't be unattended, there's a thing going on, whatever that is. And it was very difficult because I was like, then you lock everybody in the operating room. And during that phase of that surgery, nobody can go anywhere. Well, that's really inconvenient. I know. Give me another solution. And so, working through all of those little tactical problems of when we're in here, I'm uncomfortable with how am I going to get out. The challenge is we don't know what the attack's going to be. right? We don't know where that attacker's coming from. Being locked in could be the very best thing you could possibly do. And again, there is no 100% solution to this, right? Our victory is like, well, that could have been a whole lot worse. And that's about as good as you're gonna get. You know, our ability to stop the whole thing. And I am sorry, like, if you expected this to be a motivational speech and you're gonna walk out of here thinking, we've solved the whole active shooter problem, that's not the case.
What about this arming ourselves with guns?
Again, if you want, and I'll put this in the simile of schools, right? Post-Parkland, it was arm every teacher. And I was like, that is an awesome idea, because teachers have plenty of time and schools have lots of resources to seek the training and do all that because they all want to do that. That's why they became teachers. Right? And so, yes, armed responders with a certain level of training and communication capability goes a long way. Right? But that's a resource thing. Right? If I remember correctly from the conversations that I've had, there's at least 1 or 2 DPD folks on hand. More can be better. Where are they stationed? How does that work? Other houses of worship have, for lack of a better term, a posse. Right? There are law enforcement folks that attend the services, and there's an arrangement that's understood, especially if they're in the jurisdiction, that while they're not required, they're encouraged to bring their gun badge and radio and be prepared to intervene should something like that happen. Now, guns are not the only solution, right? And I'm segueing because I know we're dragging on time. Having medical personnel, right? I'm going to get to it here in a second, but there's a program called Stop the Bleeding, right? The majority of people that die in active shooter incidents don't die from the gunshot themselves, they die from bleeding out. So if everybody knows how to use a tourniquet, clot, and pressure dressing, we'll save a bunch of lives. That's not the solution, but it's certainly starting to address some of the real problem that we're seeing, and that's some of that. So it's not just guns, it's capability across the spectrum, right? When and I apologize for all the war stories, but it's trying to make the point of, when I became a police officer, I got right out of the Marine Corps. In the Marine Corps, I was working with special operations units all the time. We were doing direct action missions, combat, and then I became a police officer. I go to the police academy, and not everybody was a Marine doing special operations work, and I am, in my mind, trying to raise everybody to what I think is my level. And I was a complete pain in the neck. I mean, not something other than neck, but to everybody. Because I had this expectation that everybody wanted to be what I was. And a classmate of mine who, she's now the commander of the detectives for our department, an amazing human being, pulled me aside and she's like, Jeff, not everybody wants to be a Marine. And I was like, well, not everybody can be a Marine, but they should try. And she's like, you're not hearing what I'm saying. Not everybody wants to be a Marine. And you about broke my brain, right, at that time in my life. And so, arming everybody or insisting that there are firearms present or any of that kind of stuff is not the solution. The right tools in the right hands at the right time is the solution. And what that works out is not easy. But looking for folks, working into their strengths, staying within their comfort zone, makes a difference. Very long answer to your short question. But there's a lot that goes into it. This is complicated. Ambush is one of the most complicated military situations you can be in. It is fluid and dynamic and changing and never comes from the same place twice. And so this is challenging. So I apologize for the very long answers, but you're asking very good questions. And so I want to be value added to y'all as far as that goes. Yes, sir.
Place like this, would you think it would be a good idea to have an evacuation drill periodically?
Absolutely.
During our prayer services when most of the people are here? Or, you know, the similar.
You're right. I was going to say, I would say yes, but I'm pretty sure the rabbi would choke me out.
I think it's a little problem with that.
So the question is, are your evacuation drills important, and should they be done during service? Absolutely not. Because I don't want to.
Before the survey.
However, hold on. Let me finish here, because this is important, right? This is a very good question, because you will sink to the level of your training. You will not rise to the occasion. Hear me now and believe me later. If you think you're not going to train, something terrible is going to happen, and based on all of the action movies you've seen and adrenaline, something amazing is going to happen, it is not. To the degree that you train is how you will perform. And so, doing an evacuation drill during a simulated service, for those that want to participate, there are people, I can't even get there. And that's just the way that's going to be. But if there is a big enough group that as soon as something goes and we start moving, they will follow. And so working some of those drills, rapid evacuation, right? And this is important, right? Because it's not an active shooter drill. It's a how fast can we get out of the building drill. How fast can we lock the building down, right? You presume that you're going to be the target of the bad action, but you could have something terrible going on across the street, right? PPD shows up in mass, and it sounds like the storming of the beaches in Normandy across the street. You don't want to go outside, so you want to communicate. Don't go outside. We're going to lock the doors, move to the interior spaces, avoid any problems, and communicate with 911. You have to practice that. It's not that hard, right? How long does it take us to do a fire drill? Well, we've been working at that for decades, so this is brand new. It's going to take a little while for us to get good at it, but I absolutely see it as the wave of the future. Sure.
During services on Saturday, we don't use electronic equipment. So
Mhm.
very few people in the building typically have a cell phone,
Mhm.
unless they're doctors who use it
Understood.
and so forth. What would be your suggestion for us in terms of how many people should plan to have communication equipment just in the event of an emergency?
You have to work that amongst yourselves. I mean, again, I'm working from a place of ignorance. I don't know all the ins and outs, but it is certainly a conversation worth having, right? Here's how we're going to do this, and whatever you agree on, communication is important. The more, the better. But you have limitations, and it's totally fine. But as a group, you need to work that out among yourselves. Very quickly, and I really appreciate your time. Understand that when law enforcement arrives, they are not going to treat the wounded or help you evacuate. They're not going to direct traffic or talk to you about that parking ticket, right? Not going to happen. They have one mission in life, and I can tell you it's taken us decades to get here. And so we are not backing down from it. Because like I said, I've been doing this since Columbine, right? As a SWAT officer following Columbine, we were working these issues, and we were still in the establish a perimeter, wait for the SWAT team. Doesn't work. Militaristically, we are not counter-assaulting, we're waiting. And that doesn't work in an ambush. And so it wasn't until Sandy Hook, really. Virginia Tech, we started turning the corner a little bit, but it wasn't until Sandy Hook that law enforcement progressed to the point where we were doing show and go. First officer or two, as soon as they're there, they go to the sound of gunfire and they take care of whoever's killing people. Whatever that looks like, right? And until that is done, we can't do anything else. If people are getting killed and I'm stopping to take care of a wounded person, that person is still killing. And so realize that in the immediate moments following the arrival of law enforcement, when an incident like this is going on or is concluded, they're only doing that. And only until they're very, very confident that the threat is no longer a threat will they start doing the other stuff like helping with evacuation, treating and getting the wounded evacuated, and any of that kind of stuff. As you do your drills, as I hope that you are going to, please have your responders at least present and observing so that they have a sense of what's going on when you do that. To the degree that you can get involved in their command structure, right? Something like this happens, at some point, right? This is a crime scene, but they're going to turn it back over to you. When they've collected all the evidence that they need and go on, what are you going to do as an organization? And that's kind of a bit of a shameless plug because we'll help you with that. If you want to have a tabletop exercise where we talk about something like this terrible has happened, and here's where you come back into, here's your facility, what do you do? Very challenging. The recovery piece is very difficult. So as I alluded to before, Stop the Bleed is a DHS-sponsored program. It is probably one of the greatest additions to our response capability that anybody can do. From 8 to 80 are totally capable of these skills. Apply a tourniquet, use quick clot and pressure dressings, super easy, unbelievably great at saving lives. And so this kind of training is available. You can go to bleedingcontrol.org and find a training provider. It's 2 hours generally. It's free almost all the time. And they'll come in and show you. If that doesn't work for you, or you have a connection in an emergency department at any of the hospitals, they usually have a training cadre that'll come out and do it. But it is huge, 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 huge. The vast majority of people that die in active shooter incidents aren't from the gunshot wounds themselves, it's from bleeding out. And if we have a group of people that can come to their aid very quickly, it's really handy. And it doesn't always, it's not just active shooter stuff too. It's, you know, Dad got a new chainsaw day kind of thing. It applies to that as well. So, you know, that's, so it is very handy and very good. Sir?
Yeah, we see on TV where schools, the kids go out, it seems like one of the first responders actions to let take everybody out. What happens with someone who's wounded? Do they tell you leave everybody and leave the wounded and go out, or?
So this is part of the challenge. There is no one answer, right? Every single one of these is different to a certain degree. I would be unprofessional and unfair to you to say, here's what you do in every instance, right? If you can grab a wounded person and take them with you, do it. It makes sense at the time, right? Because this is a little bit of look into law enforcement, right? You're going to make split-second decisions based on incomplete information, and you're going to be judged for the rest of your life on it. This is why these are so terrible, right? There's all kinds of, this isn't working for us,